remembering where you come from and like remembering the people that supported you when you started is huge.
Taxes, bro.
Taxes,
the
first year of freelancing, doing your taxes. I was like, I mean, I need to work twice as hard now to pay my taxes. You gotta be fly at all times, okay? Like if your sneakers are cooked, that's a no-no. Like if your white t-shirt's not crispy, that's a no-no. So like,
welcome to the I Feel You podcast. I'm your host, Eddie Wise, and on this episode, I have the pleasure of speaking to Nirvana. Nirvana is a self-taught photographer, videographer, and set designer out of New York City. Originally from the Bronx, her passion for self-portraits and DIY set design from her home studio inspired her to pursue a professional career in photography in 2018. On this episode, we talk about underrepresentation in creative fields, some of the communities that she has discovered while being a creative, and the truth behind freelance work as a creative in New York City. Thank you so much for watching. This is a very special episode. Nirvana will be presenting at our Project Feel event on September 21st, entitled Who is New York City? We set out as Project Feel to highlight creatives within the city and really talk about who they are and what they do, and also just the general vibe of New York City, how we can make it better, and how, and the beauties of this wonderful place. So thank you so much for watching. Thank you for being here. We appreciate it. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. And without further ado, enjoy the episode. Well, thank you for being here.
thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you for being on the show and being willing to be a part of this and, talk about yourself. It's a fun experience for me to get to know somebody, especially since this is our first time talking or seeing each other. Yeah, meeting.
In real life.
I think that happens a lot with the show, which I love. And I appreciate you being willing here to talk to me, a stranger. It's really kind of you.
It's kind of crazy, right? How we go to strangers' houses. Just trust that they're going to be normal. Sure. Yeah.
Well, why not? Yeah, it's not going to be a weird place, right? No, I really do appreciate that. To start off, Nirvana, how are you feeling?
I'm feeling good.
Yeah. I'm
feeling, honestly, like my go-to answer lately has been grateful. Like that's just how I feel every day when I wake up.
Yeah.
Grateful because, I guess a little bit of backstory. I got into an accident a year ago, car accident, and I broke my arm and a few ribs and a few teeth, and it could have been a lot worse, but it was pretty bad. And ever since then, I think my perspective on life has always been like, no matter what's going on, I'm still alive and I'm still here. And I know people say it, it's like, it's kind of cheesy, like you hear it so much, like, yeah, like grateful to just be alive. But like when you like go through something like that, you kind of believe it a little more, like, okay, like you could really die at any minute.
Oh, for sure.
So I think my biggest feeling has been just grateful. Just like, you know what? Everything might not be perfect, but I'm okay. I'm alive. I'm grateful. So
yeah, that's really great. I relate to that heavily because recently I'm still kind of like recovering, but I got sick, and I also at the same time I got a cancer. It's TMI. This is like, of course, too much info. You don't need to know this, but I have a sore like on my tonsil. It's like right on my tonsil. Oh, and I don't know if you've ever had one like in your. It's probably one of the worst. Like I would rather get like, I'd rather have any sickness. Not any sickness, but I'd rather like, God, I don't know. There's so many things I'd rather do than to have that. Eating has been painful.
Yeah, I'm like, your everyday swallowing,
literally every sleeping. I couldn't sleep and it's like going away now. And I'm just so grateful that I can just sit normally, talk without feeling pain.
Yeah. That
I can eat or drink water without, it's still a little bit there, but like, it's a similar feeling. You go through something semi-traumatic in terms of your body and what it can do. Yeah. And you immediately realize that life is like good when you're not the way that you are.
Yeah, and you've been taking it for granted the whole time.
Exactly. Yeah. When you can't use your arm, oh my God.
And it was my right arm too.
Ooh.
So it's like, I couldn't do anything. Just like exactly what you're saying. Like you just feel like your entire life is affected by it.
I'm sure that impacts you as a creative as well. But speaking of impact, to get more on topic, you are going to be a part of you are a part of our Who is New York City campaign. Where we're highlighting New York City and the creatives that live there and who exactly is New York City. And a lot of that conversation has been about creativity and the beauty of it, the hardships, but the beauty of it being in New York. As a creative from the Bronx, from New York, how has that impacted your creativity and yourself as a creative?
That's a good question. I think there's like two sides of it. There's like the opportunity side of New York where, you know, I was able through just like meeting, like networking with people to like make a career out of what I like to do creatively. And then on the other side, there's like the pressure side, like the New York pressure. I think anybody who's grown up in New York knows like you gotta be fly at all times. Okay. Like if your sneakers are cooked, that's a no. Like if your white t-shirt's not crispy, that's a no. So like there's always there's always been like growing up this pressure in New York to just like be good, like be successful, make money, like live the fast-paced life. And it's like now it's even to the point where I'm like, damn, like living in a suburb in the middle of nowhere sounds really good right about now. Like just escaping all the pressure from like, and you know, you're just surrounded by creatives. So it's like in the same coin of like, you get to network and meet so many cool people and like have all these opportunities. There is like a lot of pressure that comes with being from this big city with all these creative people.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. I don't think there's a person that would disagree with that. I think it's a good pressure for some people, but I've seen a lot of people come and just hate it because to be fair, it's very difficult. Yeah. And that can be exhausting too. Like, and can really put your self-worth into question a lot of the time as well. And that's just, it's tough all around. But do you feel like you are inspired by the city pretty often when it comes to your creativity?
Yeah, I think, like my main, like obviously, you know, you could go probably down any street in New York and like take some fire photos or like, you know, include it in a scene in the film and like it'll be cool. But I think lately I've been really inspired by like getting back to like what the New York that I experienced growing up, because it has changed so much, some for the better and some for the worse. But yeah, I definitely draw inspiration from like, you know, the cultural moments, the music, the diversity, and it kind of just makes me want to show out, like remembering where I'm from and like remembering the people who raised me and the people that I grew up around. It's just like I want to show out, like I want to put this on a world stage. Like I want the world to see where I'm from and like the beauty that comes with it. So
that's beautiful.
Yeah. Oh, thanks.
Yeah. and talking a little bit more about New York and what that does to a person. You are, of course, if you didn't know already, proud Bronx native. But New York pride is a very special thing, and I think it's unique to New York, of course, and the pride that we have for like our city. You've also said before that that you've been spoiled with the diversity that comes with the city and the communities that you grew up in. Why do you experience that as a luxury as opposed to just the norm?
When I first started shooting, I was heavy on Twitter, and the group of people that I got in contact with through Twitter and posting my work on there was Street Dreams magazine, which is a photography magazine.
Oh my gosh, Street Dreams. Yo, that's
shout out Street Dreams.
Crazy. Okay, yes.
That was like the first group of people that I came into this industry through. Way. And it's a majority, you know, people of color. Yeah. And I thought that was the norm. So coming into that, and I'm like, oh, like all these people are like from Harlem, they're from Brooklyn, they're, you know, from similar cultures and backgrounds to mine. This is fire. Like, oh, we out here, you know? And then like, you know, for like the first few years of me like working or, you know, just doing creative stuff, I was doing it with them. But then once I started to work in, you know, on different sets, I'm like, where are all the people of color at? Like, and even myself included, like I'm Latina, but I'm still white. I'm a white Latina and I do have white privilege. So like I would be like, damn, like this is kind of weird. You know what I mean? So to me, I realized then like, oh, I've been spoiled with the diversity of this group of people that kind of took me under the wing.
Wow.
And, you know, just being from where I'm from in New York, seeing all kinds of cultures, like I thought that was the norm, but in reality, in the rest of the world, it's not, or the rest of America anyway.
Yeah.
So.
Funny thing about Street Dreams, we used to work with this venue, or we had done a few events at the venue, and we were close with the owner. And they had, in the basement of that venue, they had their location.
Oh, I remember that spot.
Yeah,
it was like the gallery on top.
Yeah.
And the office on the bottom.
Yeah, so we did a few events there. We met the people from Street Dreams just because we
Morgan.
were there. Yeah, Morgan.
Morgan was like the first person I met on Twitter ever. He was like the first person to be like, yo, come to one of these events. Like, it's all my homies are photographers. Like, it's going to be a networking thing. And I was like, who's this stranger telling me to come to this event? Like, but you know, I just took the risk, and it ended up pretty paying off.
Hearing the
but
name.
That spot, I was actually supposed to be like managing because they were gonna have like a photo studio in the basement down there.
Yeah.
And I was supposed to be like managing the photo studio. That was gonna be my role there, but then COVID hit.
Oh, that was
right before COVID.
Oh, dude.
Yeah. So I always think about like, damn, what things would have been like if I would have done that?
Because we were gonna partner with Seven House, which was the build. We were also going to partner with them to have Project Feel kind of run some stuff out of there as well, and be like a part of that. Like, there's like a workspace basically.
Yeah.
We were gonna pay to like basically be there, but. That's actually
it's crazy,
pretty insane.
right? We would have met like 3 years ago.
Literally, yeah. Hearing the names now too, like, yeah, that's pretty insane. I love when that happens. It's a big reason why New York is very special, and why the communities in New York are really special. Street Dreams being one of them. You know, close knit group of like photographers and people that are doing similar things, have similar energies, and also, you know, are diverse in their own way, but are a part of a similar group to you.
Yeah.
That's so special and so unique, and also not like you said before, it's just not the norm. It's not standard.
Not at all.
And yeah, just to talk a little bit more about communities. What communities have you discovered while living in New York that you're really fond of?
Discovered? That's a good question. I'm gonna have to think about that one.
No, take your time.
I think I would say the freelancer community is one that I feel like I've gotten probably the most value from, because you know, prior to starting anything to do with photography, I was in school, I was in college, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna finish school, I'm gonna get a job. Like I was getting like a communications degree. So it's like, oh, I'll work like some office job. You know, that's like the thing to do. You know, my mom's a teacher. So growing up, I was like, okay, like go to school, get a good job. Like that's the routine. Oops, sorry. So when I started to come across these photographers who were essentially like working for themselves and, you know, sending invoices, like I didn't even know what an invoice was. I was like, Invoices. The first time someone was like, send me an invoice, I had to Google that shit. What? I swear to God. I was like,
that word is like, what does that mean,
like,
bro?
what does that mean? Why don't you guys just say like a receipt?
You got Cash App? Like,
right. Cash App? Like anything? Cash? I'll take cash. But yeah.
True.
I just had so many questions. I was like, how do you make your own? How do you set your prices, your rates? How do you, you know, create like your website? How do you create a schedule for yourself? What kind of gear should I get? Like, what's worth investing in? And I feel like a lot of the freelance photographers, or even, you know, people who did other freelance work, asking them those questions and kind of like relying on them. Like, hey, really quick, they just sent me this email and they want to know like this, you know, fancy term about this thing that I never heard of. Like, what does it mean? Like, what do they, you know, just kind of like leaning on them in those terms. I feel like I wouldn't have, well, I mean, I would have eventually figured it out, but like it would have just been a lot more difficult to figure out, to maneuver, because it was just also new to me. Yeah. So I would say like the freelancer community has been very valuable to me, for sure.
That's so special. And I'm sure it's been so life-saving.
Oh yeah.
I think one of the, I mean, freelancing is a beautiful thing, having the opportunity to freelance. And there's a lot of opportunity within that, but it's also very, very difficult. Health, you know, motivation, finances, all of that is you have to find that for yourself. Oftentimes there's not really someone there to provide those things for you as a normal employer would, through contracts and, you know, set up systems that exist already. Freelancers, you figure it out mostly on your own. And having a community to help you through that, I'm sure helped a lot in terms of your morale. But if you want to dive more deep into it, how have you been able to keep up your morale? And also, how are you able to keep that while also maintaining a high quality of work?
I think keeping up the morale is like the hardest part. Like everything else follows after that. I think the moment that it felt a little bit easier to me was when I realized that a lot of people that I thought were freelancing actually had like a set job, and then they were doing like the creative stuff like on the side or like, you know, whenever part-time. They can part-time. And it kind of broke that this image that I had, this delusion that I had of like, oh, these people are just creative all the time. Like they just come in with the you know, with the bangers every week, and and it's difficult for me to do that. Why is it difficult? Because their version is an escape from, you know, whatever their day-to-day life is. They kind of, this is like their fun, this is their place to like let loose. Mine is like, this is my job, so it's kind of like it doesn't feel like an escape when I have to do the creative, when I do the creative stuff. You know, it's like, it feels like, oh, after editing all these pictures all day, now I gotta go and like take the time, the extra time to like go and edit my own stuff. It just feels like a continuation of work, you know? So I think that once I realized exactly how many people, you know, kind of had a different source of income, and the creative stuff was, you know, kind of their personal projects, it kind of helped me to be like, okay, like you don't have to put that much pressure on, you know, like doing something creative or personal projects all the time, because your creative and your work kind of, this is a very thin line, and things can blur into each other, and it's just a lot more difficult to separate, you know? So yeah, I think that has helped me a lot to be like, you know what, just take it at your own pace, and you know, just do you.
Yeah, it's very difficult. And when you have to create that balance, there's the balance between, of course, creative and the business, but then there's the balance of like the creativity and the personal, and the personal and the business. Your personality is like really embedded in that, and that starts to really show itself, especially when you start to do more client work, but also you bring on like team members and partners, people that are working alongside you on your brand. It gets complicated, very complicated, and it's oftentimes, I mean, it has cost us our fair share of friendships. I'm sure for you as well. It gets really muddy.
Yeah, like try explaining to someone who, like, I've tried explaining to someone who has like, you know, their like set job and like their set income, and then they do like the photography or videography for, you know, as their personal creative stuff. Explaining to them like why you don't want to like work on something right now, and there goes a friendship right there, because I personally felt like it was also like, I've also been called like a sellout by friends who like they only do it creatively, they only do it personally, because they're like, oh, you're like selling your art, like you're selling your stuff for money. And I'm like, yeah, like I'm trading what I like to do creatively to like pay my bills.
It's
like
a trade,
yeah, it's like a trade, you know. That's how I see it. And obviously not to say that like every job that I've ever done was, you know, I felt like, not that I've never felt bad, or like, not that I've never had like a bad job or a bad gig that I'm like, like I wouldn't do that again. You know, everyone has had those, but to be called like a sellout because you're like selling your creativity for money is like, offensive. You know, it was offensive
Yeah.
to me. And like, I couldn't understand how like a friend of mine who does the same thing that I do could sit there and call me a sellout.
Yeah.
But it's because we live two completely different lives, you know?
It's also really, I feel like, doesn't really make much sense when you keep thinking about it.
No.
Because we sell everything.
That's
like,
what I said. I said, I sell my work.
You sell your time.
You sell your time. Exactly.
You sell your labor.
You sell your labor. You sell your mental. You hate your job. You know, that person, they hated their job. So you're selling your time and your mental health and stress and all that stuff.
For probably like, what, $15 an hour?
Well, I don't know how much they got paid.
Listen, we're not going to talk about somebody else's bag. It's okay.
Right, exactly.
We'll keep that.
It's not even about
I got annoyed because
that's
doesn't
exactly
make
how I felt.
any sense whatsoever.
When you really think about it, it doesn't make sense. But because they view their art at such like, you know, they value their art so much, which I understand that they could never imagine doing that.
They probably tie it to a lot of things that are oftentimes like, you know, a lot of people try to tie art to spirituality and kind of other things that are ethereal. And it's hard to interact with people who are too heady about their art, because then it's like anything can exist and anything can happen and anything can be anything that you want it to be. And this is the beautiful world that we live in with art. That's just how that's.
And there's always
some
like
people.
There's this side. It's like a spectrum. Like there are people that are super like spiritual with their art, and like I've seen, you know, them create beautiful things and go through that process. But the first time that I picked up a camera was because I wanted good pictures for Instagram. That was it. Like it was nothing spiritual for me.
Listen,
and I took the pictures, I posted them, they came out good, I kept going. You know, I always tell people this, like I just started taking pictures of myself for Instagram. It was always that. So it doesn't mean anything, it doesn't take anything away from me to give up my art for money, you know, because I'm not attached to it in that way. To me, it's been like the best business opportunity, the best career opportunity. I've gotten to go so many places, I've got to meet so many people. That's how I see it. So,
and that's hard to sometimes explain and get across, and it's even harder to explain why it's not as glorious as some people might feel like it is. Freelance work, especially as a creative, is romanticized in a lot of ways. The idea of being your own boss and, you know, not having to work for anybody, and also being able to do whatever you want and making money off of, like, you know, doing stuff and being at home and all this stuff that people think it is. But there are a lot of pitfalls, and I've seen this for experience. My dad is an entrepreneur, and he, you know, he hated working for people. He was his own boss. That was the only thing he wanted to do. But he had to drag us through the mud to make that happen, like his family. And it worked because he's really hardworking and he's an incredible individual. But those are the sacrifices that you have to make for it to work out in the end. And there is oftentimes when you first start, no benefits. There's no set pay. There's no 40 hours. There's no part-time. There's no vacation hours. There's no sick hours. There's no health. You don't get health insurance for free. Well, you can. There are ways to get health insurance for free, which Project Fuel is going to start talking about soon. We'll get to that. Okay. But there are so many difficulties when it comes to being a freelance anything, and people oftentimes don't talk about how hard it is. Taxes, bro, taxes
the first year of freelancing doing your taxes. I was like, I mean, I need to work twice as hard now to pay my taxes.
Some people don't even do taxes till 5 years deep in their business, and then they're getting audited and they have to like retroactively, bro.
Yeah, that's cool that you had your dad as an example.
Yeah,
because
I was very lucky.
Although like, you know, I'm sure you guys had your tough times, like you mentioned, but having an example of like an entrepreneur in your family, it expands your idea of like what success looks like. Yeah,
and what's possible. Only reason I'm out here now in New York trying to do this thing is because I saw what you can do, all the businesses you can start, all the things you can try, and he gave me the freedom to try these things with his success, which I think is beautiful. And I think I would hope to also expand that success into my next generation, and then ideally that continues, and that, you know, there's the intergenerational wealth for my family, right? But that with I definitely chose probably one of the worst, probably one of the least.
Me and you, we're in competition right now.
The success rate, yeah, the success rate in terms of that, I don't know, we'll see. But you know, we work hard, we try to figure it out, and also this life is, like you said, what we were talking about earlier. It's like, you know, we're good.
Yeah.
We're good. We're not, you know.
We're not, like, at the end of the day, we have a roof over our heads. We're not starving. Like,
family, friends.
Friends are good. Family's good. Like, it's not bad. Like, I can't complain. And that's the other thing, too, is, like, the majority of people that do, like, you know, just, you know, have, like, a regular work situation, the conversations are usually, like you said, like a like them romanticizing what
like,
freelancing is.
To
like,
work for anybody.
Oh, you get to like do what you want.
You get paid.
Like you get paid. And I'm like, you get a consistent paycheck and health insurance. Like, crazy. Wow, that's nice.
Couldn't be me.
Right. So it's
it is me right now, but yes.
It's so interesting. It's so funny to me every time I have these conversations, because it's like the grass is always greener on the other side.
It literally is. That is one of the most true statements that you don't really realize until you get older and you are able to try things.
Yeah.
Oh, the grass is always greener. And you hear it from some of the richest people that exist, or the you know, rappers and people who make it, right? They always get there and then they're like, you know, this is nice, of course. There's a lot of security. I'm sure it feels incredible, right? To be able to have that level of success. But there are beautiful things about my previous life that I really miss.
Yeah.
And that's just the perpetual state of like human nature.
Yeah.
So we're always going to be in that cycle.
We always like, we need something to like live for and work towards.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting that you mentioned like people, like rich people or people who are well off, because a few years ago, I was just talking about this yesterday. A few years ago, I met someone who we were on set and everyone's going around like saying like where they're from, where they grew up, where their family's from. And they get to me and they're like, oh, like, where you from? I was like, oh, I'm Dominican, Puerto Rican, grew up in the Bronx. And they're like, one of them was like, oh, you're like an OG New Yorker. You're like a classic New Yorker. And I was like, I mean, I guess like I can name you off the top of my, like 10 people that come from the same place, from the same culture, like right now. Yeah. And the same guy was like, oh, yeah, but you know, like that's what people expect me to say when I tell them I'm from New York. But then when I tell them I'm like from Tribeca and grew up in my mom's loft, like it's like not as cool or interesting. And I'm like, oh, so what's cool and interesting? Like struggle, like having to like not being in a financially free position, like that's the cool part. And obviously, like, you know, not that he, you know, I don't think it's like an individual thing with him. I think it's just this idea that as humans we want something to work towards. Like if there's nothing to work towards, you kind of like lose your. That's why like people with money start doing crazy things, you know, like they want to be like what is it called, like thrill seekers, or you know they want to start like, you know, these new businesses or these new ideas, or jump off a plane, like go skydiving, because it's like we need something to work towards as humans. We need like a target, and if we don't have that, we feel like we don't have a purpose. Yeah. So.
And that I feel like a lot of people probably will relate to that story as well in terms of what it means to be interesting, especially in New York. I think there are certain stereotypes of what it means to be here, and if you don't really fit that mold, you can kind of feel like on the outside of that. But it's interesting to hear the struggle thing, because I feel like artists also feel that way, where they just like need to struggle to be like an artist, right? To be interesting as an artist, you kind of have to be suffering in some way, right? But I think it's more so that we are all suffering. Everybody's suffering in their own way, because we are humans. We're, not to be too dark, but we are gradually dying, right? Yeah. And we're in this is our condition, and our condition is to never be perfect, right? I think the difference between, you know, artists and anybody who's just struggling generally is the expression, the way we express it to people. And we have the unique skill of expressing and helping people understand. and it gives them a place of solace and also an understanding that we're all together in this, right?
Yeah.
So I think that people have the wrong idea when it's like, oh, I need to struggle. It's like, no, you're probably already, you probably already have your own struggles. Maybe you should make art about how you feel like you need to struggle, because that's an interesting struggle to be.
That would be interesting too.
Yeah, your self-deprecation and your self like destruction because you feel like you have to be interesting.
Yeah.
Really interesting.
That is interesting.
Anyway, to continue on the freelance thing, burnout that happens all the time. How do you deal with being able to continue to attract and get new clients and satisfy their needs while also maintaining a creative vision for yourself?
Recently, I found that like TikTok has worked for me with finding new clients.
Yeah.
I think the showing the behind the scenes of my work has really worked, has helped me with keeping clientele, because I did that from the beginning, just kind of like showing how I got the shot that I got, because I would always like MacGyver something in my house, because I didn't want to invest in things yet, because I didn't know if I wanted to really do this. Yeah. So I would just like use whatever I had, right? And I always thought that it was funny, like the way I would like put my camera on like a box or something. Like, it would just always look funny to me. So I would post it as a joke, right?
I feel you, trust me. The stacking like 20 books,
stacking some books and put the camera on top. Like who hasn't done that, right? So I felt like it was just a joke and it was funny. But then after a while, I really started to notice that people do like to see how something comes together. And I think from the perspective of a client, when a client sees, oh, wow, like she really finessed that, or, she didn't really have to use much, or it wasn't crazy expensive, or it wasn't super elaborate. I could see myself either doing something like that or working with her to get something similar to that. So to me, always the BTS has been like, I always say like the moneymaker, because it really just, people really are just intrigued by it and they find it interesting. And I always try to work with people's budgets, because the people that supported me when I first started this was like my friends from high school, my friends from middle school, my friends' moms who needed like baby shower pictures or, sweet 16s. Like I never,
classics.
The classics, I never turned those jobs down ever.
Yeah,
like I don't,
you shouldn't.
I mean, maybe when I get older
at
or something, whatever, at a certain time, but
when you're
good. I still feel like, I have fun doing those jobs. I'm like around people that are similar to me. They feed me good Dominican food and Puerto Rican food, and
you're making me hungry now.
Yeah, sorry.
No, it's okay.
So yeah, like I think that just like remembering where you come from and like remembering the people that supported you when you started is huge. And like also like just giving people insight to like what makes your work different from like the next person. I think those two things have really helped me to just both keep clientele, like clients that I've worked with, happy, and also, get new clients.
Yeah.
So
that's good. I'm glad you brought up the weddings and the quinceañeras and the parties and stuff, because there is a time when you're going to do the things the gigs that normal people need, or normal as in like non-creatives. Yeah. Because there are more people that aren't creatives than there are creatives. Yeah. And you're not always going to be doing creative work with big brands and people who are looking for creativity, right? You're going to be doing people who are looking for creativity, but to highlight themselves in terms of weddings or, engagement photos, or there's so many different things that people want photos for. And I feel like there's like a pride that people might have if they're creative, where it's like, I'm not going to do like these things because this is beneath my creative genius, my intellect. I'm so above all of this. Like, but then you see the check they're about to write you and you're like, you know what?
Right.
I do got to pay rent. Yeah. And also you can find so many ways. There are so many ways to get creative fulfillment from those jobs.
Oh yeah.
The amount of the videography gigs for weddings that I've done. I haven't done that many, but every time I do it, I'm like, I don't want it. But then you get to the editing and you're like, you know what? Let me make something special for someone to consume, for someone to hold on to for the rest of their lives that they're going to watch when ideally they're gonna watch when they're 50.
We never know.
You know, and look back on it and be like, was a beautiful time. I'm so glad we paid this person this money to capture this.
Right. A lot of the time it feels more fulfilling to do stuff like that. Like a couple months ago, it was my grandma's 80th birthday, and I did a little video for her and like just to capture, you know, the family and everything. And I loved it. It was so fulfilling. It just felt so good. And when you, I don't know, I'm a very like, I get like emotional and I start crying. Like even at people's like Sweet 16 that I don't even know, like I'll like start crying when they're giving their auntie a speech about how much they love them. I'll deadass start crying. So it just feels like, okay, like you're creating, like you said, you're creating something, you're documenting like this really important moment in somebody's life. So I've never seen it as beneath me. I'm just like, this is fun. Yeah. This is cool. Pays the bills. Like, you know.
And you're a service to this person or this family, or you're providing something special that you're able to do. Yeah. And you're able to do it really well. Yeah. And you're able to capture moments and make them, you solidify them in time in a way that other people can't. And that's at the core of all of art, all the art that you can create. At the core of all of it, there is that engagement photo, there is that, you know, wedding photo, the wedding video, there's that newborn photo shoot, it's moments in time. That is what we are as artists, is that we express ourselves, of course, but we express ourselves in a moment of time. And ideally what can happen with any kind of piece of art is that somebody can look at it 20 years from now and they know exactly where you were in that moment in time and know why it was special, that it was being captured. And it's a little easier with weddings and stuff because, of course, those are moments that people want to remember. But how do you, what really makes a creative special is when they can take a mundane moment, like a second, like where it's just like, this is just the city skyline, or this is just, I'm just at a bodega, or I'm in a coffee shop, right? How do I make this moment something that somebody could look back on and feel something? Yeah. And I think photography is like the original, that is the version that we like went hard on. Like that was the first thing that was like, we can like solidify these moments besides just like text, right? Besides history, right?
Word, that's true. Wow, that's a good way to look at it. Yeah, I think like my perspective on photography has shifted a little bit because obviously, you know, with phones and like, you know, just like the price of cameras like getting cheaper and more accessible, I was always like, you know, I'm gonna have to start getting onto my like video stuff because like the bar of entry for photography and like the demand for it's a lot lower now. But I think it's like what you're saying is most of the time people hit me up, it's not because they don't know how to use a camera. It's because they can't come up with a concept. That's usually the part that a lot of people struggle with. And even if it's for like their birthday photos or, you know, their kids, you know, photos, they don't know, what they want it to look like, you know? So I think that's the real value is your creativity and like how, like you said, how you can bring your own style to this mundane moment.
For sure. And it's a beautiful thing, and it does cost money. And I think, I don't know if it's like this in photography, because I'm not super into the world of photography. I don't know a lot about the freelancers there. Is there kind of like a hush hush culture about people's rates and what they typically charge for stuff like that? Like, what is that? What is that? Why?
It's so corny. I don't understand it. I think if there was more conversation about it, we would all get paid more. I realized it when I did a music festival a couple years ago, and I was doing it. I was shooting for Instagram, right? So they paid me pretty decently. And I was talking to this girl that was working with me, and I was like, let me ask her if they paid her the same. Not because I, you know, thought that they had paid
lesser,
had paid one of us. Well, I thought that there was a possibility that they could have maybe told us different prices or told us different rates because she was a little bit more experienced than me. You know, so I was like, let me just out of curiosity ask her how much she got paid to do this. And she got completely offended. And she's like, I'm not talking about that.
Jesus Christ.
And I was like, but why not? You know what I mean? Like, I'm not, we don't, maybe if the employer was like, oh, like we don't disclose, but like amongst us as creatives or as freelancers, like let's talk to each other about it. Let's say how's work going for you, or how much did you charge for this, so I can know how much to charge for it next time. I think why people do it, I think it's because because no one talks about it, no one wants to talk about it. It's like a cycle, because no one wants to be the person that's making less than somebody else, or nobody wants to admit that they're struggling to find work. And I think it's mostly just out of pride.
It's so interesting.
Yeah. And I think in the last few months, like of 2023, a lot of people have been struggling to find work. And it's only now that I'm hearing people finally open up about it. Like the first 3 months of 2023 were super difficult for me to find work. And like, I had to like take out a loan, or I had to like move back in with my parents. But in the moment of those 3 months, nobody was talking about it. But now that it's over, everybody's like, oh yeah, like I can talk about it now. So, I when it comes to like rates or like, experiences with different brands or companies, or I appreciate when people are transparent, but I don't expect it. I don't expect it because people just don't talk about it.
It helps so much, especially like, and there are definitely people on like YouTube and stuff that talk a lot about freelancing work and how to value work and where to put it at and stuff. But it really, you have to hear it from people who are doing the same thing. And I think that, in the place that it's in when it comes to freelance work and it not being like a unionized thing, and there are companies that can take advantage of that situation. And where like of course they'll find some young talent that's like really, really good and pay them dirt because the talent doesn't know how much they're actually worth.
There's been times I've seen like contracts on the table. Like people will tell me like, oh, this was our budget. But then I'll see the contract they left on the table and that was not the budget. They were lying, So people they will take advantage where they can. And the more naive that you are, they notice that you are, they're just going to do it even more.
And like, you can't really be surprised, and you also can't blame anybody. You have to know the reality of the situation, and also being willing to talk to people about rates, man. Oh my gosh. Like it's so hearing people talk about hourly rates, even it doesn't even have to be like what you got paid for a specific job,
right?
But like when somebody approaches you, what do you start with,
right? Like what's your starting rate, what's your range,
exactly. What, like, how do you value exactly what's going on,
right? And
the amount of effort that you have to put into it, it's really difficult. And there are a variety of difficulties within industries like these, within creative industries. On previous episodes, on a lot of the episodes that we've been having previously, we've been talking about those difficulties, especially as a freelance creative. And ideally, a part of the mission with I Feel You is that we want to make people feel seen, and we want to make sure that people aren't alone, and that also we can provide some kind of like, we can provide a place where you can look for those kinds of resources and understand where people are coming from and where to find people that are willing to have those conversations. So a big part of the difficulties that I'm sure you uniquely experience, underrepresentation in these fields as well. You talked a bit about this earlier, is when you were working with Street Dreams, you were around people that were like you, and but also people that weren't like you, very diverse. And then when you went into the more you went into onto more sets, especially around, even in New York City, I would assume that it's not the norm, that it's not as diverse. 51% of the population, I think, around that, are women, and 39% are non-white groups, 39% of the country. And even so, we are still massively underrepresented in a lot of these fields, and especially the technical fields. Like on the screen, of course, that's where the focus is. That's where people want representation, and that's where people fight for it the most. But it also matters behind the scenes, and who's directing, who's on set, who's even the people, the grips, even the people who are doing like the simple things, right? Yep. That kind of representation matters a lot. And I guess for the people at home, I want to hear more about your experience when it comes to that, and what experiences have you had that gave you an understanding of the value of representation, especially in the field that you're currently in?
Yeah, it's definitely true for the most part. Even when you see people of color on screen, the entire production team is gonna be not people of color. Chances are. What's the second part of what you said about value?
Your experiences. What experiences have you had that showed you the value of representation? Yeah.
That showed me the value. I would say I think when you hear children talking about the cartoons that they watch, or the YouTube videos that they watch, or having like one of my closest friends has a niece, and she's I think she's like 6 now. Yeah. But I've seen her pretty much grow up, and they're Black, so that's some context. But she was wearing this backpack last year, like her school backpack had this little girl on it, like an actual girl, not a cartoon, like live action. And
interesting.
It was like a little Black girl, and her name was Lele. The backpack said Lele, and I'm like, who the fuck is Lele? Is that like they're making backpacks of this little girl? Like, who is she? Must be somebody. And my friend's niece, she's telling me, oh, she's like this YouTuber that I watch. And to know, growing up, like we had like Pokemon, Powerpuff Girls, whatever on our backpacks or whatever. These kids have like actual closer representations to who they are in the media. And I think before it was like you try to find a part of who you are in the character. Like me and my sisters were always like the whole Powerpuff Girl, like which one's which, who's the mean girl, who's the mean Powerpuff Girl, who's like the nice one, and who's like the the main character, right? I was the main character, by the way. But
always
it's like you try to find characteristics about that character that aligns with you. But I feel like this generation of kids, they don't have to do that. They have direct examples of, oh, this person looks like me, they talk like me, we like the same things, like okay, like we can relate. I don't have to like find a mystery reason why we could be cool or get along. So I think that's like aside from work, but I think hearing like the children of today talk about looking up to these people and having these examples, to me has shown me like, not like this is really important. Like I want my kids to have that. And also seeing like my younger sister, she's not that much younger than me. She's like 4 years younger than me. So she kind of was like right there behind me. She's kind of going into like her entrepreneur thing now. And she's, she has her own brand, and she does like vintage clothing, selling vintage clothing and like styling and stuff. And she tells me like, yo, like seeing you made me understand that I could do stuff like this. So to me, it's more about,
so important. The
valuable part is like showing people that there's more than one way to do things. There's more than one stereotype of beauty. There's there's beauty in every skin tone. There's beauty in every culture. So I think those things to me are the most important. I hope that answered the question.
No, you did. That was a beautiful answer. And not gonna lie, I saw Barbie yesterday.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Did you like it?
It was actually so good.
It was pretty decent. It's better than I expected.
I had a great time. But it made me think about like all of the representation and how there was a good amount, of course, in that. But I think one of the main messages of that movie that I think they actually did pretty well was the idea of representation and how it affects culture and society and how it can impact someone's life. Talking about having a character to model yourself after, right? Back then it was Barbies, and for boys it was like action figures and superheroes and stuff like that. And now, you know, with YouTube and especially YouTube, there's the influencer, the age of that influencer vibe, right? We kind of had some really unfortunate representations of society and people that, you know, unfortunately, a lot of people follow these.
Yeah, it's not all good.
Other individuals,
Yeah.
but there are also a lot of incredible people that have platforms that are doing well by their platform, and also showing people that, you know, there are possibilities, especially when they're open. I find that a lot of YouTubers, especially in freelance work, oftentimes are pretty open, and I make it a point to be open about like the gear that they use, how they got the gear.
Yeah.
When they're doing sponsorships, like, you know, their rates, their hourly, like all the ways that you can better yourself as a creative. I think they are incentivized to show people that, because people love that kind of stuff. So it's
YouTube University. That's where I learned everything.
YouTube University is a magical place. I mean, everything that I'm doing right now, all this gear, everything that I was watching YouTube videos before you came in today, just to make sure that I knew what I was doing.
Yeah,
right?
and that's the thing. It's always like a learning process. Like I will forever have to Google something, but that's okay. You know what I mean? Like I'm okay with that.
Yeah, and it's fun when we can see people like us, you know, struggling with similar things and guiding us, right? Guiding us through it. It's really nice.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, thank you for sharing that. To talk a little bit more about you, Nirvana, you have been working on some new projects. From what I've heard, you are focusing on documenting family history, right? Why? First, of course, you know, if you don't mind telling us a little bit about why you're doing that, and, you know, what inspired you, the direction that you're going in, and why you decided to go in that direction, and why are you focusing on those stories, on familial stories?
So like I said, it started with my grandma's thing, her 80th birthday. I think it was, and then I recently did like my niece's 4th birthday party. I did a little video for her too. It was the reaction that I got from my family and seeing how much it meant to them to have these moments. I have an aunt who she's like the historian, you could say, of the family, because she keeps all the pictures.
Oh, wow.
All the photos are at her house.
There's so many photos.
All the photo albums. And they kind of stopped though around like maybe like 10 years ago, because that's when we kind of switched to the iPhone.
Yeah, when we started to put it all on the internet.
Exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, you know, our Instagrams are full of stuff, but there isn't like an incentive to like really document like these family moments and like, you know, just to document them, not for a post, not for, you know, because we all got them titis that love to post their little selfies and stuff on Facebook. But it's more so about like, you know, I don't have any, I have like a handful of like home videos that my dad, he used to play around with cameras a little bit. So
VHS cameras.
Yeah, you know, the VHS, you know, to
I love the
family events. Yeah. And I only have a handful, only have a few, and I cherish them like nothing else, because I'm getting to see who I was as a kid. It sounds funny, but like you don't know yourself as a kid. You don't think about who you are. You don't think about like now we're like, yeah, okay, I know myself, or at least somewhat. But like you don't really have any memory of like what your personality was like, what you like to do, stuff like that. So, or even now, like when I was younger, I felt like, you know, I remembered when I was in college, I remembered who I was in high school. But now I'm like, what the fuck did I used to do all day? Like, bro, okay, we had Instagram already. But let me not age myself. Hold on. Forget that. It's just like, what was my day-to-day life like? What did I like to do? Like, I remember my friends. I remember like partying and hanging out. But like, or like, what were my difficulties? What was I sad about? Or what was I struggling with? And I think that the documentation of the hardships and the good times that your family goes through is I guess for generations to come, it's gonna be something of value.
Yeah.
You'll get to see a video of your grandma being annoying at her birthday party and be like, oh, she was headstrong, or, you know, she was picky, or, you know, like, you don't really get to know those people when you know, you live past their thing. And, you know, Instagram is, obviously, we all love Instagram. We all use Instagram. But I think it's kind of like taken away the desire to document something more in depth. Yeah. So to speak.
So I was going to say, you know, the difficulty of social media and creating art on social media is like, how do you, well, I guess, I mean, this is the challenge that we've always been striving to accomplish, but like, how do you highlight the complexity of human nature? And how do you highlight the complexity of a specific person? You know, we do it all the time, and it's like the never ending, always intangible goal of filmmaking, photography, art is, you know, is there ever going to be a way to fully encapsulate what it means to be a human being? Probably not. But that's the ultimate goal. Is that's the thing you're always trying to find.
We can add little bits and pieces that could add up to give someone an idea.
To get an idea of who someone is, even just specifically as a person. And the more documented information you have about someone, the more you can know about that. But also, I think the more interesting thing is the creative expression of that person. That's always the thing that's more fascinating. I think the biopics that they make about the celebrities, and like the Bohemian Rhapsody movie and Elvis, and the one about Elton John, like all these movies, those are going to be infinitely more interesting than the person itself.
I love those
because
kind of
because of the creative like the creative encapsulation of that person's legacy. That's the beauty of like how we can, you know, how we can cement ourselves, is that we can kind of do it in any way we want. You know, we can create any history we want of ourselves. And that autonomy, that freedom is something we're also afforded in the place that we live in. And like, it's a beautiful thing to be able to do. And I think that it's nice to hear that you're focusing on something so specific, but also so meaningful. I you're the first creative, the first person that I heard that's making content about family stuff. Like, it's not, most people are trying to get away from like anything family related.
And actually, like, I know I don't know if were you attached like on our email thread?
Well, maybe.
I was like, I don't know if you saw, but for the, you know, short film that I'm making for your guys,
of course I know about all that stuff.
I've changed my mind on it like 10 times. So I changed my mind on it one more time, and I am going to make it about my family, actually.
Oh, that's beautiful.
So it's going to be like a story about, obviously answering the question like, who is NYC, but like what this specific family line, what New York has given and what New York has taken away. And to me, it felt so right. I'm like, oh, this just feels better than like the other stuff I had was good too, but like this just feels more important to tell, you know? This is just like historical, you know? So I changed my mind again, so just let me know.
And that's so it's so exciting. I really can't wait to see it. I mean, with everything that's happening surrounding this event, I think that I really can't wait to see everyone's expression and the way that we feel about it. I've seen so many different interpretations of New York since I've started this project, just doing all the interviews and doing all the video content. So many people have different ideas of what this place is, but it all feels familiar and similar in a lot of ways, which I think is so beautiful. With the amount of diversity that we have, we still find our commonalities and our strengths. And I'm excited to highlight those strengths and also highlight some weaknesses and ways that we can get better as a community, as a creative community, of course, but also as a New York City community. It's really exciting. Thank you for being a part of it as well.
Of course. Yeah, I'm excited. You guys put a battery in my back. I'm like,
listen,
this is going to be so cool.
That's what we're here for. That's what we want to do. And we are, you know, we've been fans for a while at this point, I hope we've told you. And we are excited to finally be able to work with you. And September 21st, it's going to be the date that event happens. So please be there, everyone.
Yeah.
Nirvana will be there. Yeah. And buy some art, please. Oh my gosh, please buy some art.
Yeah, support your local artists.
Yes, please. And Nirvana, if you don't mind, to end us off, if you don't mind giving us a brief, comment about how we could support you, ways that we could support you. If you got anything else coming up besides the, of course, the Project Feel event, and also the final thing that I would ask from you is if you can give us some words of wisdom.
Oof,
yeah, take
that's
your time.
heavy.
Take your time. We got all day.
Follow me on Instagram.
Yeah,
that's the way you can support.
In the description is gonna be.
First of all, look it up. Look at the stuff. If you like it, then follow.
Yeah.
No pressure. No pressure. Words of wisdom. Damn. Oh, also check out my website because I have stuff on my website that I don't have on my IG.
Of course.
Damn. Okay. Y'all should have put this in so I would have known. I would have came prepared with.
We like it on the spot.
Oh, you like it on the spot.
It's genuine.
Yeah.
It's more genuine.
Okay. That's true. Words of wisdom.
Could be
I'm trying to think
anything.
like what I would tell myself. Oh, I know. Well, that one's kind of corny though. It's kind of cheesy.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Okay. Stop giving a fuck what people think. I think that's like the key. That's the key to everything. I think as I've gotten older, obviously I care less. But I hear older people be like, nah, when you get to like 40, that's when you're going to like really, really not give a fuck. And that's when you're really going to do what you want and accomplish the things you want to accomplish. So I think what I would have told myself like 10 years ago is like, stop caring what people think so much. And even now, like I still tell myself like, stop caring what people think so much. Yeah. And people say it all the time, but it truly, truly, truly makes a difference when you just don't care what people think. And I think I have to take my own words of wisdom. Yeah. So, yeah, I'll leave it on that note.
No, that's great. One thing that I learned that helped me with so many of the social interactions that I've had, because I'm a relatively shy person. Nobody.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't get that.
I've been able to kind of expand past it. Like
I mean, you're doing pretty good.
No, I
right
appreciate
now.
it. Yeah, I was like super normal and shy, and then I did theater in high school, and then I decided to not be. But socially, it's one of the greatest things I've ever heard was that nobody cares about the way you look or act more than you care about the way you look or act. Yeah. Nobody gives a fuck because everybody's thinking about themselves. Everybody's doing the same thing you're doing.
Exactly.
Nobody's looking at you like,
oh my God, look what he's wearing. Like
you look so
you know what
weird
it is too. I think like now with people do like to like take photos or videos of everything that they think is funny on the train or outside and like post it. Like, oh, he's wilding. Look what he's wearing. He got them chanclas on outside. He's crazy. So I feel like that kind of puts like another idea in your head. Like, damn, if I go outside looking crazy, I might end
somebody's gonna record me.
I might end up on the TL, But at the end of the day, I think what really, really like matters is that whatever it is that you're doing, like you're happy with it. Yeah. Because the thing is, if you feel like you look like a bad bitch, even if your outfit looks crazy, you're going to have that confidence. And even if somebody does try to say something, you're not going to care.
And somebody's going to see your confidence and be like, you're a bad bitch.
Exactly. They'll believe it too. Yeah. So I feel like
all it is.
Along with not caring, it's also like doing what you truly, truly makes you feel comfortable. Because at the end of the day, if you don't feel comfortable, it shows. And, it'll those two things like will help each other. I would say. That's
great. Yeah. I can't wait to be on the TL personally.
Oh,
I'm waiting for my day to be embarrassed on the TL.
Really?
Can't wait.
Why?
I don't know. It's just gonna be so freeing.
You're gonna
everybody can see this. I don't have to worry anymore.
Oh, that's true. You're right. That's a good way to look at it.
Then I get a bunch of followers.
Right, you'll get a bunch of followers.
I start to monetize whatever it is. Maybe I'll be a meme. I'll go on like Ellen and Oprah. I'll go on the gym, these talk shows.
That could be like your ticket to fame. Oh, dude, anybody's ticket.
And then I'm out.
And then you're done.
And then I'm done.
You never got to do it
Make enough, and then I'm just done. Nobody knows. And then
you know what?
And then I come back on like Vice Media, be like, you remember this meme? Right. Here's him 60 years later.
He is now.
I can't wait. No, it's gonna be fun.
It's a good way to look at it. Sure.
Yeah. Well, thank you again for being on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
And thanks
for watching.
For watching.
If you did, we're like talking to nobody right now.
Technically, yeah.
It's kind of weird.
Somebody's there. I want.
In the future, we're talking to the
Come on,
future.
Lester, get up. Come on.
Oh,
Come on.
now you don't want to be next to us, right? When that's all you wanted before. Oh, look at him.
Say hello, Buster. Say hello.
Oh, ooh, ASMR.
Just not want to be on my lap right now.
That's good ASMR right there.
That's great
Throw that
ASMR.
shit on YouTube. Oh.
Buster,
Oh, you have a little eye booger.
he
Just
always
took a
has
good
eye
nap.
boogers.
That's a sign of a good nap. A nice gooey eye booger.